Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah thumma ma ba'd. In this session entitled The Way of the Student Readings in Imam Zarnuji, what we want to do is characterize the person engaging da'wah, the da'iyah, as a student of knowledge. Beyond the basics, the person that's engaged in da'wah is obligated to be a person of depth in their understanding and knowledge of the deen. Person that's constantly growing in their understanding of the deen. But their understanding has to be one that is a manifestation, right? A manifestation of the person's relationship with Allah. Right? In another session, we talked about Dawah as a path to self-reformation. But the reality is that has its limitations. If we're using the path of Dawah as a way to reform ourselves, without taking note of the very reality that we're calling to. أتأمرون الناس بالبر وتنسون أنفسكم وأنتم تتلون الكتاب أفلا تعقلون. Is it the case that you're calling the people to a high degree of integrity and spirituality and relationship with Allah, and you forget yourself? Right? Or more literal translation, you forget yourselves? While you're reciting the book of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, are you not becoming cognizant? Are you not using your intellect to understand what's being said? What's being said to you while you're reciting? And then yet you're calling the people to a reality that you don't practice, right? Because you forgot to implement it upon yourself. So the person engaging da'wah is not enough for da'wah to be a path of self-reformation. Right? In the sense that you're seeking to be saved from your own self while you're calling the people to da'wah. Right? There's limitations on this approach. At minimum, the person engaging da'wah should communicate to the people the reality of Islam, and this takes knowledge. Right? Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala says, قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ أَنَا وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِي. Say, tell the people that this is my path, right? I called the people to Allah with insight and understanding, with vision and depth, with wisdom. The term basira is an ocean in itself. But fundamentally, aside from the intellectual component here of understanding, there's that element of having a relationship with Allah. There's no point of integrity in claiming to call to Allah and know how to call to Allah, and then one is devoid of a relationship with Allah. The danger of da'wah nowadays is that in the race to find self-sufficiency economically, and Imam Zarnuji mentions this, that the student of knowledge in the time that he's writing combines between the pursuit of a trade and seeking knowledge so that he doesn't covet the wealth of others, right? When a person is in need, and this is the insight of the Shaykh Rahmatullahi alayh, Imam Zarnuji, that he mentions this reality of combining pursuit of a trade with seeking knowledge as a way to stave off coveting the wealth of others. Because when a person is in need, when a person is not capable of supporting the self, there's a possibility that in seeing others as they're possessed of wealth, that one begins to covet what they have. Although it may be the opposite as well. It may be the case that the person in that state, when they're seeking knowledge and they're not possessed of wealth, that they come to depend upon Allah. In any event, that's not the focus of this session, right? But what we want to say is that the pursuit of knowledge accompanied by wealth brings self-sufficiency and strength. And we parallel that station to the person engaging da'wah when they're trying to build and they have to be frank, they have to look to the people in such a way that they engage marketing tactics. They're engaging marketing tactics because the dawah is not being supported by the community. So the danger of the da'iyah is that in trying to find self-sufficiency, trying to do for the self, so that the effort of dawah can be continued, there's that possibility of losing a sense of integrity. I think that the reality that we're facing in dawah is one, how to increase our knowledge, how to have a relationship with Allah, 2, how to practice, 3, 4, how to be self-sufficient economically, so that we're able to call the people without losing a sense of integrity. It's not just a matter of understanding and knowledge, but the prophets, alayhimus salam, they had a relationship with Allah wa ta'ala. So that when they called the people, they modeled the reality that they were calling to. وَالَّذِينَ اسْتَجَابُوا لِرَبِّهِمْ وَأَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. Imam al-Qurtubi, rahmatullahi alayhi, he says that this ayah, along with other scholars of tafsir, is a praise of the Ansar, because their practice was to consult one another on matters of importance. So here's an instance in which Shura is elevated to a higher level by the Quran. And the whole chapter of the Quran is entitled Shura. But what we find is that this practice of Shura was there already in the society, that the Muslim community developed. And so the Quran itself begins to teach us a number of things. One is that that which is there in the society which is good is affirmed. Right? It's affirmed. So we find that here the Ansar are laying down a model in which they're not only establishing the Salah, right? After they responded to the call of Allah to declaring La ilaha illallah, calling the people with understanding, is what we saw before. Now we're seeing people accepting the Dawah and then establishing the reality of Islam, right, through Salah, and then manifesting a quality which is needed today, and that's the quality of Shura, the end result being unity. This is what Imam Qurtubi rahimahullah, he alludes to, that the Ansar had this habit of Shura which would bring them together because it was a cultural practice, right? And the Quran accentuated this reality and took it to another level, showing that it's integral to Islam, right? Aligning it with the Salah, after Aqid, after La ilaha illallah. And in this case, aligning it not only with the Shahada and the Salah, but also with the Zakah, right? Social justice, justice for the poor. So this is what we want to keep in mind as we begin to understand Imam Zarnuji rahimahullah, that dawah requires of us insight into the deen, but as well it requires of us to be from the people of Sidq, صادقين مع أنفسنا, truthful with ourselves. What is our relationship with Allah? That's the question that each of us has to answer. Right. قل هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة. That's the model that's laid out for us by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. أنا ومن اتبعني. That I call the people to Allah with understanding, insight, wisdom, integrity, and experience, right, of having a relationship with Allah, as well as those who follow me, right. And then the word that's used here is Itiba, right? Itiba. So Itiba is to follow someone with understanding. This is the opposite of taqlid. So the Quran here is giving us the insight that the the person engaging da'wah, should call with insight, integrity, and understanding. And then giving us the understanding that those who respond to the call of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, الذين استجابوا لربهم وأقاموا الصلاة وأمرهم شورى بينهم وينفقون مما رزقناهم. That the people who respond to the reality of La ilaha illallah, not only in speech but in deed, not only in speech but in deed. Here, Iman is qawl wa amal. Iman is qawl wa amal, is to confess that Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala is one, and to act upon that reality by following up the shahada, by following up the shahada with proof, and that proof is the implementation of the deen, right? That point of integrity that the da'iyah must have. والذين استجابوا لربهم وأقاموا الصلاة وأمرهم شورى بينهم ومما رزقناهم ينفقون. And those who respond to the call of their Rabb, they establish the Salah and they practice consultation among themselves, and they give from their wealth. These should be the qualities of the person engaging da'wah, right? And these are the qualities which build community. These are the qualities which build unity, right? That people have a relationship with Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, and in that process they have a relationship with others, right? The ayah is teaching us that the people who accept the reality of Tawhid, they pray together, right? They consult one another and they support one another, right? Because after all, giving zakah is not only that it's a command in the Sharia, but it is also a concern that we have with those in our community which are in need. It is also a concern that we have with building the community, right? So these are the qualities of the people of Dawah, right? These are the qualities of the people of Dawah. So when we allow ourselves to decrease in good deeds, when we allow ourselves to falter in the Salah, right, to not have that opinion of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala as the one who's guiding us. Because here the Quran uses the word Rabb. الَّذِينَ اسْتَجَابُوا لِرَبِّهِمْ. Right. So there's a tarbiyah factor in this. The one who cares for the people of Iman. Right. The one who nurtures them. They never by the Salah, they have a relationship with Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. They establish the Salah. Right? And we know that the early generation, we know that Qiyamul Layl was essential to their lives. It was essential to their lives. Right? And in the meantime, implicitly was being put forward here in the Quran itself. Right? When we look at the Salah itself, the Salah centers around the Quran. So there's a constant communication between the human being and Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, because the Quran is the speech of Allah. قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ أَنَا وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِي. Say, this is my way. I call Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala with insight and understanding, vision, wisdom, experience of who Allah is. And those who follow me with understanding follow this path as well. Follow this path as well. Imam Qurtubi says, هذا أمري وسنتي ومنهاجي. As a way to understand the ayah, he says that this is as though the Prophet is saying that this is my affair, my command, my activity that I'm engaging in, what I have been commanded. This is my sunnah. This is the path that I'm calling the people to, the path that I tread. And this is my minhaj. Right? This is my minhaj. For lack of a better translation, my method, my way of life. My orientation. The principles that govern my reality. My action, my thought, my feeling, my sense of right and wrong. So then the da'iyah is caught in this reality, in this crisis of needing to transform the self and be a person of integrity, while calling to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala in a reality which demands that we deal with the people in such a way that may seem to take away from our integrity. That's why you find many ulama from the salihin, from the people of salah, from good deeds, they tend to stay away from the dawah scene, right? Because of the competition between the people of dawah, and the struggle, the struggle that must be undertaken to increase one's own dawah effort. Right? The danger is the loss of self. The danger is a lack of integrity. But in the end, the person doing da'wah is a student of knowledge. Has, at minimum, if there's some integrity there with the self and seeking knowledge, the ability to benefit self and others through that knowledge. And if there's integrity spiritually, all the better. But spiritual depth by itself is not sufficient because Iman increases and decreases. So, in the state in which a person is of low Iman, they can benefit themselves by teaching others the knowledge which they have gained, even if they are not practicing. And perhaps that's a way for self reformation and transformation. But a person of spiritual integrity without knowledge, if that spiritual integrity is deficient at some point in time, they have nothing to communicate to the people. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر لي ولكم والحمد لله رب العالمين.